Matt woke up to someone screaming, "Jenn, Jenn, Jenn," and he thought it was somebody in the room. But it was Karen calling Jenn and saying something that had happened to John. Welcome to the Roundup, True Crime with Mike. Here I give you an update to current cases so you can quickly catch up on today's or this week's happenings on some public cases. Sorry I was out this week and I didn't put out any updates, and I haven't completely moved over to the new logo. We are here after day 14 of the Karen retrial. So far the complaint has been that the trial has been too slow, but today things heated up. The last part of Matt McCabe's direct testimony finished up, and it included several things that, if believed, are really bad for Karen. First, let's hear the clip about waking up.
Ready?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Where left off yesterday, you had gone to bed on the 28th, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Friday night.
And at some point you woke up on the later in the morning on the 29th, correct?
Yes, Saturday morning.
And do you recall, sir, what awoke you on that morning?
Yes, I do.
What was that, sir?
I awoke to the screaming of, "Jenn, Jenn, Jenn." So when I woke up, I thought there was somebody in my bedroom. I kind of snapped up out of bed. What the hell's going on? Looking around the room, realized my wife was actually on the phone.
And the screaming that you heard, how loud was that, sir?
It was loud enough to wake me up from a dead sleep. I could hear it. It was loud. Obviously, I was laying in bed and realizing after my wife was laying right next to me on the phone. But it was a loud, "Jenn, Jenn, Jenn." It was repetitive.
And do you know approximately what time that was, sir?
Yeah, shortly before 5 a.m.
And did you recognize the voice that you heard scream?
There are several things about this. First, Karen screaming, in that it's around 5 in the morning. So why is Karen screaming at 5 in the morning? She dropped someone off at a house with no car and had been drinking. Why not assume he had fallen asleep at the house and was wasted? So she calls Jenn to see if she knew where John was. And here is the big key from Matt.
Well, what if anything occurred to you in reference to that?
In reference to her saying she last saw him at the waterfall, I then told my wife, "What are you talking about?"
So not what you said, sir, but I think Mr. Lally asked you what you thought, or what you gathered from that.
I thought she was crazy
And why was that?
because I saw her vehicle. I saw the black SUV arrive to the 34 Fairview that morning.
You had overheard the conversation from Mr. O'Keefe to your wife.
Matt says that he heard Karen say that Karen had not seen John since she had left the waterfall. So Matt is like, "What the hell? I saw her SUV at the Albert house." So then his wife is picked up by a screaming Karen, which Matt asks her to quiet down or she will wake up the whole neighborhood. Matt's direct finishes and then cross comes. The defense attacked Matt on several points. One, he talked about the fighting scene at the bar that was seen on tape, and Matt says it was nothing. Second, the defense went after the number of times and where he saw Karen's SUV. He was trying to point out Matt's inconsistencies in how he described Karen's car. He then asked Matt if he or anyone saw John in the yard, which Matt said no. Then Yannetti went into whether Matt was monitoring the investigation. Matt said he was in the neighborhood and texted the group that the cops were at the, quote, Asian house. He then took a picture of the cops. Yannetti was trying to get Matt to say he was monitoring everything. Then cross ended shortly. Next up was Jenn McCabe. She was with her husband, Matt, at the waterfall and heard that everyone was heading to the Brian Albert's house, and she started driving there. She talks about getting a text from John on the way there, so she calls him and says, "Here is the address." John calls back and says, "Anything specific?" And here is something that might be the key. Jenn says, "It's by Bella's house," or something like that. The reason that this could be important is because John used to date Bella's mom. So Jenn arrives at the Alberts' house and goes inside. In a little bit, she looks outside and sees Karen's car in one spot and then texts hello. This was at 12:27. A few minutes later pass and she looks out and her car is further down the road. She texts again at 12:31 and then at 12:41 she texts again. 12:45 is the last text. No answer from John from the text. And then at 4:59 and two other times within minutes in the morning, she texts John with please answer. Before heading home, Jenn talks about how they gave Julie and Sarah a ride home. At 4:53, John's niece called Jenn. Initially, it's Kaylee calling. John didn't come home and Karen needed to talk to her. Karen was screaming, Jenn, Jenn, Jenn. Then Karen says, we got in a fight and I left him at the waterfall. Jenn called Karen back in a few minutes and said that we saw her outside the Alberts, and Karen said that she didn't remember that. Karen then asked Jenn, could I have hit him? And she said she had a cracked tail light. Jenn then says that she thought that maybe John crashed at Tom Betty's place, hence the calls and texts in the morning to him. Jenn says Karen came screaming and running at her place next. Karen then says, did I hit him? And we have to go to Fairview. Then they go to John's house and she sees the broken tail light. Here is a clip.
According to your phone, who was calling you at 4:53?
John's niece.
And so that would be John's niece, Kaylee, is that correct?
Correct.
And how old was she at this time?
I believe she was 14.
And she had just gotten into Bishop Thean, correct?
Correct.
So she was in 8th grade going in, finishing up her 8th grade year of middle school, correct?
Yes.
Is that a normal thing, that Kaylee would be calling you at 4:53 in the morning on a Saturday?
No.
So you answer the call, is that correct?
Yes.
When you answer the call, who, if anyone, is initially on the other end?
Initially, it's Kaylee.
And what, if anything, did Kaylee say to you?
That John didn't come home and Karen and we wanted to talk to me.
And even in that initial call, when you're speaking to Kaylee, what, if anything, do you hear sort of in the background when you're talking?
Karen screaming.
And could you hear what she was screaming?
She was just screaming, Jen, Jen, Jen!
Fairly loudly, is that correct?
Extremely.
Now, at some point, does the defendant get on the phone with you?
She does.
And what, if any, conversation do you have with her at that?
She proceeds to scream my name multiple times, and she tells me that John didn't come home, they got into a fight, and that she left him at the waterfall.
And how do you respond?
They then get in one car and start heading back to Fairview. Then Karen started talking about houses John could be at, and Bella's name came up again, referring to the previous night. As they head to the house and pass the flagpole, Karen yells, there he is. Jenn and Carrie say she's batshit crazy. But Karen just runs over to John. Lally then shows the dash cam of the patrol cruiser, showing conditions that morning and how unlikely it would be for her to find the body. And now let's see a clip of that.
Clarification purposes, with the laser pointer, if you could direct the jury's attention to where you see Ms. Roberts.
Oops.
Now, the area where you observed Mr. O'Keefe, can you see that in this particular pause frame of the video?
Not in this frame, I cannot. It's not clear.
Just come in if you could. You see that area now?
Yes.
Go ahead using the laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention where. Just come in if you could play this for.
Jenn's direct testimony finished up on Friday afternoon, and court resumes for a half day on Tuesday. No court on Monday. Today was a big day, and I didn't get all of the nuggets in. I expect next week to be crazy too. Thank you for listening to an episode of The Roundup. Be safe out there, and remember, don't do anything bad that will end up on one of my episodes.